students are going to do a quick presentation, about 10 to 15 minutes, answering a particular question, and then we have 3 individuals who are going to provide some feedback, but at the same time, anyone from the audience can ask questions. We will cut you off after a certain amount of time, but please feel free to ask some questions, follow along, and we're really excited to have you with us today. So I'll let this first group come up, and we'll help you put up your presentation. Come on out. You're recording, right? Are we recording?
How do I enhance?
Maybe like, yeah, there we go. Awesome.
And then I'll put it in the middle.
Yeah. Does somebody want to
Yeah. Can I get that paper back real quick?
Okay.
Yeah.
You're all good.
And how do we move between slides?
Here, you can.
So we just like
Uh-oh.
Try tapping it.
Technical difficulty.
No, hold on.
wait, Michelle's touching it too. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, so then how do we
On the bottom.
Oh, awesome.
To move it up a little bit. There you go.
It does not want to move.
Here?
Oh, that might be it.
Scroll.
No.
Alright, should I turn
It's not working.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Go try to pin it on.
Oh yeah, so true, guys.
Okay.
And
No.
then-
There we
Hey!
go. Okay.
Alright, so we're about to do our presentation about enhancing university effectiveness in the commercialization of climate technologies. Our prompt, the specific question that we were seeking to answer was how can universities be more effective in the business of commercializing climate technologies? And they wanted us to specifically focus on leveraging federal and local private-public partnerships to drive climate resilience technology and utilize community support. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started.
Just tap it.
Okay.
So, what is the problem that we are discussing here? Universities or academic institutions are innovation hubs, basically. They conduct research and they come up with innovative solutions on climate technologies that can both mitigate climate change and aid in adaptation to climate change. However, the transition from the academic or research stage to production and mass utilization of climate technologies could be quite challenging. And here are just some of the potential challenges that can come up. First, it could be lack of funding, both for initial production and for scaling up of climate technologies. It could also be challenging regulatory and policy environment. Higher production and utilization costs for climate technologies, for innovative technologies compared to the traditional ones. And finally, it could also be lack of public awareness and lack of public acceptance of new technologies.
Alright, so this is like a Venn diagram that shows all the different sectors that are involved in this. We have university, business, and government. This is a Venn diagram to show how they all interact. So the university, that's where it all starts. You start with the research that what innovates the climate technology. And they also foster a community of educators and future industry leaders. So that's like where it all starts at. Then we have the government. They create the policies, they create the budget, and they interact with the university by providing funding. And they also provide incentives for universities to research certain subjects. And they do this through like money. And then we have business. Their job is to market the product. They handle the logistics and the distribution of this product. They also handle the connection with the customers. And then they interact with universities to commercialize the technology that the universities research. And then they also interact with governments by programs that governments make to incentivize them to do climate technology. And altogether, the hope is to commercialize climate technology.
So this is going to be our research section. Obviously, research is going to be super important within the commercialization of climate technologies. So this research can be, within the innovation and technological advancement within climate tech, but also in the informed decision making, so we can kind of understand where to go with the technologies, kind of what avenues to take to actually get them dispersed to the public and get them dispersed to the correct institutions, as well as how we can tie them intrinsically with economic growth, because the developing world, of course, needs to develop before they can really concern themselves with focusing on the climate. So we want to ensure that these technologies can be beneficial for that aspect of those countries as well.
Right, so education and awareness is a big role. We all know that knowledge is power, right? If we don't know anything about these technologies, anything about the situation that is going on, we can't really do anything about it, right? So there are methods to reach target audiences to get that knowledge out there. We have children, young adults, impoverished communities, and older generations that we need to reach. And we need to reach them in a certain manner. Not everybody, has the same thing. We have strategic partnerships that can aid in this outreach. So school system implementation, we can implement classes and we can teach the children about the issues that revolve around sustainability and climate tech and the change in the climate change, right? We can talk about media and TV partnerships such as PBS, so we can reach out to those impoverished communities and the children. We can teach them a little bit more about that. And we can talk about news and stuff like that, where adults will watch that and they will get more informed on what's going on.
No.
Oh no! There we go.
So universities can also foster collaborations and conduct market research in order to accelerate technology transfer. Universities can collaborate with government agencies and the private sector to accelerate the technology transfer. They can establish partnerships at both national and international levels. And national level partnerships can actually start at the local level, county, state, city. And universities in collaboration with other institutions can conduct market research to see where the technology is most applicable, what markets can be most suitable for.
So next we're going to have the university partnerships. These are another critical cog in the machine of accelerating the commercialization of the climate technologies. We can actually take a look at one of the things we learned this weekend when the individual from the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth campus came in and was speaking about the robots, what's it called, the autonomous vehicles at the bottom of the ocean. That was a federally funded program, but it was also a collaboration between the University of Massachusetts and the University of Rhode Island. They were able to share resources, including these private partnerships that they had, these private investments. And now, although they're getting funded by the government, they also have funding from private entities, and they're working on getting patents out and working on actually, having these products be sold. So it also assists in the publicity of the products, because multiple universities working on the same project, of course, means multiple universities sharing with their students, sharing with their network of corporations, and that's how university partnerships can help with this. So we also definitely believe that support of small businesses within this is critically important. Small businesses are often at the forefront of this innovation, especially in developing countries where the governments may not necessarily have the resources to invest specifically in this. So we believe that in order to pursue commercialization, we have to directly have that dialogue with small businesses everywhere. And then this is my last slide. Continuous innovation. Corporations that want to invest always want to see that your company is looking towards something new. Innovation leads to cheaper production, cheaper distribution, all of this stuff, and of course will lead to greater customer satisfaction. So always innovating is going to position your products best for commercialization.
Showcasing innovation and technology. we should start holding annual climate technology conferences that not only showcase the research being done at FIU, but also research being done at various other universities, similar to what we're doing today, but on a much larger scale. And not only will we do this, but we should integrate government, like Fabian was saying, the government and the private sector, because we can make these technologies, but if we can't sell it, if you can't use it, then there's no point. So we need funding from federal sources, so we should invite government officials to come in, show them what we're researching, and try to get them to fund it, as well as businesses to try to get money from the private sector as well. The goal is for these technologies to be talked about, funded, and eventually implemented.
Yeah, universities can also engage with policymakers to ensure favorable policy and regulatory environment for climate technologies. And for that, they can make a case in front of the policymakers based on evidence that they obtain conducting their research.
Yeah, so a big problem in research is the incentive for researchers to actually get their research to the public. So this depends on like department to department, but I come from a physics background, and in my research is with quantum materials. And in my experience, like we're focused more on like quote physics properties, not really on how this works in real life applications. So I think there needs to be an incentive to shift this towards real world applications. And some of this might be like funding programs, fellowships for researchers, and matching funds that could match a researcher with the business and provide incentive for them to work together. And then equity. So if you actually get your research into market, you could actually get a profit from the research. Something else that could help is guidance in the market. This could come in workshops or mentorships from business leaders to help faculty actually navigate the market. And then offering sabbaticals so that researchers could take time away from the universities to actually go to conferences, network, which takes a lot of time and can't be done like while conducting research.
Economies of scale. These technologies can be implemented not only on the local scale, not only at the university, but all over the US and even internationally. We learned about a lot of technologies this week, including like wave energy. So they like made a contraption that harnesses energy from the waves in the ocean, which was honestly mind-blowing to me. And it was surprising that I was not aware of this technology before. This can be implemented at the local level to provide energy for local governments, which would save on cost in the long run. And it can also be used to reinforce existing structures like high-performance, ultra-high-performance concrete, which we also learned about on this trip. This will make concrete more sustainable, longer lasting, and much, much stronger at a lower cost, and it's used from many recycled materials, which is great for sustainability. They have the potential to be implemented at every level, and we should definitely be more aware of these things.
Alright, so when it comes to accessibility and cost, reducing cost is crucial to making these technologies accessible. Otherwise, they can't be used at the large scale, which is what we intend to do. You know, we can't really make a change if everyone isn't a part of this movement. So addressing price drivers through innovation, like we previously mentioned, continuous innovation will reduce that cost if we keep improving these technologies and making them more widely accessible. Now we can increase retail and distributor support to make it again more widely accessible to everyone, making communities be able to reach these products that might not be able to like afford them on a day-to-day. And increasing funding through strategic partnerships can also help aiding this outreach and helping people be able to access this and become a part of this movement.
We should host climate technology conferences. Host workshops, mostly to spread the information. How many of you, can I get a raise of hands, how many of you knew about ultra high performance concrete before I just mentioned it? Okay, a few. It's been out for a few years and it's being tested at FIU actually. I think it might have been invented there as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Collaboratively.
Collaboratively.
With the University of Miami.
The University of Miami. Yeah, so it's a new project, and it will, in fact, make concrete last much, much longer, and it will not leave it permeable to water, or it will make it much more resistant, which will make it last much, much longer. If we continue these collaborations with other universities, the products that we can make in the field of sustainability will continue to grow, saving us money, time, and energy. By working together, we can make a big difference in protecting our planet. Thank you all.
Oh, wait. You guys got any questions for us?
Yes.
Zach?
So, in the face of all this collaboration, how would an entity ensure that they're getting the most out of the exchange while still giving something themselves?
Well, I think that's kind of to be answered on the case-to-case basis, right? An entity is not going to enter a collaboration if they don't think it's going to be beneficial for them, right? So, for example, like we were talking about Florida International University and University of Miami collaborating on the ultra-high performance concrete, that both of those projects are being jointly funded by the Department of Transportation. So they're both getting funds for it, and they're both helping make the world a better place. So I don't think you would really enter this type of partnership if you didn't think that you were getting something out of it and contributing something to the world.
And that's also, to add on, that's also a part of commercialization, is where businesses step in and you can make a profit out of these things. In the world of business, I can speak for that, I'm a business major. In the world of business, we worry about money. Where is that going? Who is making the money and all that? And I think that by commercializing these products and making them more widely accessible, you can create that, make a profit. So that's where businesses would be incentivized to step in and also form part of this. Any other questions? Yes?
I have a question. So, in your PowerPoint, you guys focused slightly on like university students, engaging them, having a climate tech fair. Specifically at FIU, I think it's lower than 25% of students are actually STEM students that are even learning about climate change and climate technology. What are you going to do about the other almost 75% of students who are not engaged in this type of learning at all to educate them on what's going on and make them want to go to something like a climate tech fair?
That's where that's where outreach would step in. Going through social media, letting the students know about this, posting more, promoting these things. We can have those events not just with this conference, but community-wide events, especially from those students who are part of this department, that can be educational and serve as a resource to students so that they can also become more aware of this.
I think it's also important to note that two things. One, climate change is an issue that affects our generation quite particularly. We're probably going to be the first generation to see countries go completely underwater. There's going to be, countries, for example, like Tuvalu, that by 2050, they could have no land mass left. So this is something that our generation does care about. And additionally, look around this room. Not everyone in here is a STEM major at all. In fact, more than half of us are not. Yet we all still have a vested interest in climate technologies and learning about it. That's why we're all here, yourself included, as an international relations major. So, yeah.
Yeah, to add to this, this outreach doesn't have to be technical. It can be done in a way where it's basically accessible to anyone, any major.
Can I bounce off of that?
We've spent time for one more quick question, and then we'll roll on to our next group.
I would actually like to bounce off of that before we get to the next question. Is that okay? So this is actually a very, very important topic for interdisciplinary studies. This is not just for STEM majors. It's actually thanks to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who was a writer, that the Everglades became as popular as it is, that the Everglades Restoration Project is in place. Because of her writings, everyone in the US learned about the Everglades and all the issues surrounding it. So we need to do this in an interdisciplinary way in order to spread outreach.
Logan?
So, you guys talked. Sorry, everyone's like G8 out. I would like to congratulate you for fantastic performance. But I just wanted to say. So you guys talked about improving legislative perception of these programs in order to increase not only funding from the government, but also ensure that the policies allow you to get all the work that's needed done. But how exactly do you intend to improve legislative perception? I know that education, is some part of it, but how really can you combat vested interests, such as, for example, lobbying and more classically damaging forms of energy production?
So it's actually really interesting you ask that, because actually most of the people that were in this room before you got here did exactly that yesterday by going and visiting congressional staffers from 3 different districts around the United States and advocating on behalf of these policies. You know, Congress people are very interested in tech hubs. There's 36 across the United States. 12 of them have been funded so far, including ours in South Florida. But they are interested in expanding these. They want to hear young people's voices. They want to hear the voices of the people involved, because at the end of the day, it was an idea that was generated from Congress. So, you know, literally just having those one-on-one conversations with them can be extraordinarily helpful in achieving our goals.
We mentioned it in our slide that the university will need to present the case based on evidence that they collect during their research.
Thank you so much. Anything from our other judges' questions?
You have one power and you can solve one of the multiple challenges that you guys briefed us. Which one would be the most important one, the most critical? What do you think is keeping us from going to the next step on this issue? Is the market, is the government, is the regulatory environment, why aren't we making the progress that we need to make?
Perhaps in the cost.
I think the cost as well.
I think a lot of it is logistics too. Like there are just so many countries that do not necessarily have the resources or the circumstance to focus on the climate right now. They have bigger fish to fry. So there's an argument to be made that we kind of have to have a more peaceful, less impoverished world before we can start focusing on these things too.
I would say it was to have it, like we already have an energy grid, we have like a society that's like used to this. So I'll say like changing mindset is the biggest thing we have to overcome.
Thank you. Next group.
We should also do introductions.
Do we?
Do not just like how many students I'm studying this.
Should we be the pressing person?
Do you pay already?
I did pay it. Is it not?
Alright, give more seconds. Unpin.
Oh, I already paid it.
More that way.
Is it in the middle?
Like
More?
more. Wait, let go? Okay, now just make it bigger. Oh. Let me.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Our group was tasked to talk a little bit and start a dialogue about how students can become engaged in the commercialization of climate tech. So we were presented this problem because climate change needs to be addressed rapidly and worldwide. And one of the ways that can help address this is by harnessing the power of youth. And so our proposals look at how university students can take the lead in creating progress towards connecting all of the fascinating, interesting discoveries that are happening at the research level and at universities, and bringing it onto the open market so that there's more rapid acceleration of using climate tech.
And to kind of go over the process and how we were kind of brainstorming, we kept encountering a number of issues of how we were going to implement what we wanted to do today and how we were going to engage the student population. And something we found is that FIU is always called a commuter school. And why is because that we see a lack of student interest, a lack of student engagement. And so something we wanted to focus on is how can we get students involved and how can we get them wanting to focus on climate technology and using their academics to prosper themselves in their career fair. And so that also goes into overall coordination. Universities have a level of bureaucracy that can make things difficult to be able to implement. Wanting to implement new classrooms, you have to go to the academic office, the register office, talk to professors. So all of these major steps can make programs almost impossible to be laid out. and then offering that availability so that students who are working, students involved on campus, involved in different type of coursework are able to involve themselves. And the most important thing is that we want to be able to understand that climate tech address itself in every single person's degree. There is not any academic field out there that does not involve itself in climate tech and being able to better our society and make ourselves sustainable. And so, as my colleague already said, we kind of split ourselves into two different programs. As was mentioned earlier, this seminar involves not only undergraduate students, but graduate students here to understand what's happening in DC. So we kind of wanted to separate it as these two types of students are on fairly different roads, but are on the same path headed to, DC to be able to advocate for this climate tech.
So first we're gonna start off tackling undergraduate students. So we decided to make it similar to the senior design project set up in STEM careers. So we're gonna split up the senior design into two different parts, two different semesters as a traditional senior design is done. So we have capstone 1, which would just be focused on learning about climate technology, learning about how to present stuff, learning about how to make a traditional scientific project of climate technology or just make a comprehensive research project. And then the next semester they would move on to capstone 2.
So yeah, this is where they'll be able to do proposals and actually apply what they've been learning in capstone 1 into a real hands-on experience. Of course, we know it's different with STEM and non-STEM because STEM really likes to have all the, ugly numbers and really hands-on, while non-STEM is more towards, a lot of the documentation. So that's where we decided to try to unite both of them in this thing that we're calling a micro-hub that we'll get to later. So we can have both things where, the engineers will work on where the engineers are best. And then all the SIPA will work where they're best. So it's something that really, get us into something where it's more to a real-world example, and this can definitely go further. So with this, we've decided that with this research, there's not only a university level, but also a federal level, as we've seen here in DC. So we could even have some students come venture out here into DC and talk with Commerce, the Department of Energy, and even possibly agriculture, depending on your exact field of research. For example, from personal experience, I'm doing research in the Biscayne Bay area for water quality assurance, and I'm more on the engineering side. So it's really hard, to try to get engineers to, explain all the technical terms to people who have no experience in it. So that's where, we come in, translate, and then it's a lot easier for them to understand.
Yeah, so we kind of credentialed this buzzword, a micro-hub. What is a micro-hub? So as you saw before, there was capstone 1, which is focusing on STEM students. It's only applied to STEM students in their capstone. So this is making things with their hand. This is using those numbers that many of us do not know how to do. But capstone 2 is open to all different types of students. And this is where they can come in and, as I said before, use their academics and transfer this to real-world experience. So something that we learned here in DC is we have all of these scientists and they're able to come in and build this technology and look at how it works. But when actually making the policies around it, they're not policymakers, they're scientists. So that lack of knowledge is really what we're able to tackle in capstone 2. If we have an engineer and they're coming on making something, we can collaborate them with a business student or a marketing student so they're able to look at how we would actually put this on the commercial stage and actually be able to understand the sustainability of this. Or we can put them with some of our SIPA students that work in international relations and be able to observe some local and international policies and compare how the research that our STEM students are doing on more of a grand stage. Now, for students not wanting to involve themselves in this tight-end research, obviously when looking at real-world experiences, this involves internships, this involves fellowships, this involves coming here to FIU and DC and learning what we are doing in this great hub. So for students not involved in that, there's other opportunities to be able to hit that capstone framework. But for our students involved in research, and for those top students that make something amazing at the end of the capstone, we wanted to welcome them right here at FIU and DC and able to present just like all of us are doing to students and members just like you guys about what their hard work kind of made up to be.
So having a mentor is a crucial element in commercializing climate tech. I work with Big Brothers Big Sisters, so they're in Miami and they work with elementary and middle school students who need some guidance in life, and they connect them with people from various fields and industries. So we would start off with a program structure where we're matching mentors and mentees who have like aligned interests, and they can bounce off of one another. So some key components of effective mentorship is having goals. You want to set attainable goals so that you're not putting too much on your plate and then you don't want to continue with your path towards success. So we want to make sure that we are setting these attainable goals with the mentors and the mentees. Introducing real world challenges would be very beneficial because these mentors, they have the experience. They can have a mentee who they can give these problems to and ask them, how would you solve this? And then they can give them feedback. They can give them constructive criticism if they need to work out some kinks. So we just want to make sure that we're engaging all aspects of the industry. Lastly, we want to focus on commercialization skills. So with market insights, we do want people from startups, small businesses, and nonprofits. We want to hit every single pocket. So they can come in and give mentees the information on the competitive landscape of things, the market dynamics, and what do customers want? What do they need? And then regulatory and compliance guidance. So with commercialization, it's an industry. You have to learn how to get the money for this. And that's what grant, you have to learn how to write a grant, or you need to learn how to get certifications, permits, and make sure that you're complying with these regulatory standards. So if we could get mentors in who are already knowledgeable about these things, then our mentees are going to excel astronomically compared to people who don't have mentors.
Oh, it's unpinned, it's not pinned.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So another important thing for mentorship is alumni networks. So I know that most universities do have some type of alumni network, but a lot of students aren't engaged with it. I don't know all of the reasons why. It might be because of flexibility, or alumni just don't have the incentives to participate in these networks. But we want to establish a mindset into all university students where it's like a pay it forward mentality. So are you guys familiar with like when you're in a drive-through line and then you pay for the person behind you their meal? So something like that. We want to create a sense of community. So we bounce off of each other's ideas, and the only way this is going to work is if we do have a strong community and we all want to help each other. So we want to have the pay it forward mindset, and then make sure that students are aware of these alumni mentorship programs, and give them the flexibility with online platforms so that we can have these long-term mentor relationships.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about several recommendations that the graduate students came up with in order to work with FIU and advance interest here in DC as well. You could press the next one. All right, so we had 3 specific proposals. 2 of them involved working directly with FIU, with students contributing to FIU and FIU contributing back to students. And then we also had several recommendations when it came to micro-credentials for FIU as well, which include grant writing, which I think was mentioned earlier, and other specific skills. So 2 of our proposals were graduate assistantships, where graduate students are the bridge between universities and commercial, government, and nonprofit partners. And then we also talked about the grant writing credentials, having more accessible seminars for students like this one, which was really good. Thank you so much again to the organizers, and more funding for different FIU startup programs. You can touch the next one. Thank you so much. All right, so the one that I proposed specifically was the FIU Student Internship Partnership Program proposal. I know that's a little bit, but so essentially the way that this proposal would work is that let's say you have an internship wherever it is that you get one. So you get an internship whatever it is, let's say it's the Environmental Protection Agency, and you get them to collaborate with FIU in any capacity, whether it's through looking at the tech hub that we have in Florida, whether it's through collaborating through the tech hub, or just bringing students into the EPA and getting some time with the EPA. And in return, FIU provides resources to these students, connections, accelerated internships, perhaps first priority for fly-ins, and other opportunities as well. Number 2.
We also had an idea, so this kind of requires the companies to create a placement for interns, but not every company or institute could possibly do that. But we still want to reach them, and so we have this idea where FIU could fund an assistantship where the students would actually go out and conduct outreach. While we've been here at DC for the last 3 days, we've worked with legislation policymakers. We've worked with think tanks and other kind of governmental institutions, and they have all kind of had the same thing said where they're like, this is really impactful, you guys talking to us. It's really important for us to be meeting to talk about your purpose here and also what is really important to you. And so we think that by having this graduate student be that for the university, it would be an easy way for the university to talk about the research that they're doing and kind of accelerate any sort of partnerships.
So with this internship partnership program, we created kind of like a framework for how we would actually implement this for graduate students. So to start off with the initial engagement of how to catch these students and introduce them to the idea when they first start their graduate academic careers, we would want to implement this into department orientations every graduate student must attend before they start the actual graduate program. And that kind of plants the seed for future ideas. We also want to have grant funding organizations. So we want to have a set number of organizations that FIU has previously worked with that students can practice grant funding opportunities, so practice the writing of the actual grants. We also want to have a set program coordinator. This coordinator would be able to work across departments. It shouldn't be just strictly STEM majors, should be all departments. And that would advocate for this program being available for students who are not fully funded for their master's or PhD programs. And then we have program incentives. And this is where we come back to the GA contract, so available for both funded and non-funded students as a graduate assistantship. And for students who are already funded, this is a little bit tricky, so it might require a contract clause, so you can receive 2 different types of funding from FIU.
So outside of the assistantships, we also wanted to give opportunities for students that wouldn't necessarily have time to dedicate to a GA, and so we'd like to give kind of optional shorter programming like grant writing micro-credential. The grad students in this group, we're all kind of talking about what skills we would need in order to commercialize climate tech, and one of the big things that we found was missing is any sort of course on grant writing. It's kind of just like, all right, we need the funding, we want you to try and get it, and then the next step is like, okay, but how? And so investing in the time to produce these really robust grant writers, I think will help, and that will eventually spill over into their lab and research. Another option would be to hold seminars where our graduate students that will either go into industry or academia can learn actually how to continue later on in research or in policy fields and the federal government, finance, that kind of thing, to still support commercialization. And also just current job opportunities or fellowships afterwards that would support this. And then The last idea that we had was adding financial support to a program that FIU has called Startup, which creates small grants to fund student projects that want to go into the market. So this would directly help kind of increase the amount of climate technology projects that could be commercialized.
So overall, to summarize, our solutions to mediate this problem presented to us. For our undergraduate students, we discussed the option of Capstone 1 or Capstone 2. Capstone 1, which focuses on observation and research within the STEM disciplines to help identify innovative opportunities, and Capstone 2, which involves interdisciplinary collaboration to propose and develop practical solutions, culminating in a prototype or initiative connecting students to peers and alumni networks. Then for our graduate students, we propose 2 graduate assistantships, which further integrates graduate students with existing and new partners integral to commercialization. And overall, we hope that students in the graduate program would be offered skill-building opportunities like grant funding preparation and networking through seminars. We'd like to thank everybody for listening and open the floor to any questions.
We have time for about 2. Yes.
I wanted to thank you guys for this really wonderful presentation. I definitely learned, I think I gained a lot of insight into some unique ideas that could be implemented. I really agree with what was said before about that particular idea of engaging with both alumni and students. I think FIU does have a bit of a problem of like a lot of online classes, a lot of that commuter mentality. I think that also makes it part of a problem when we're talking about our alumni networks, because you don't feel as connected to the school and the program. So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you think that these different programs could start connecting all the different parts that you mentioned? So, you know, obviously all master students were once undergrads, so how can we connect undergrads to master students? How can we connect master students and undergrads, both of them, to people who are already in the field, who are already commercializing or working for companies? Or, I mean, the government is one of the biggest buyers and, you know, of goods in I guess the US government is in the world. How can we get them connected with these different intricacies and different parts, and really make FIU like as engaged as possible?
So to the first half of your question, where you were talking about kind of getting students more engaged with the alumni network, my first recommendation would probably be just more email communication and text communication, depending on which bachelor it is that you're doing and the alumni that FIU is connecting with. So like, let's say, for example, I saw a couple weeks ago through my email that FIU had somebody from the UN come and speak. So I got that email, didn't get a text though. So maybe just perhaps improving the communication a little bit more would help commuter students a lot as well. Also, being a commuter isn't necessarily a bad mentality, just to put it out there. Like, it's not a bad thing that students have to drive and are a little bit more disconnected. It just means that FIU has to do a little bit more remote communication. So my proposal for that, right, I said more communication and also maybe like a Zoom link as well. That way, all these meetings, you don't have to show up to campus. You can actually just show up on a Zoom call. It could be live streamed. Getting around in Florida is honestly kind of difficult with all the traffic and working that I have to do personally. I commuted, I do online. That's what I would want. And as for the second half of your question, the first graduate assistantship, you're talking about like government connections and whatnot. The first graduate assistantship was getting your, whatever organization you're interning with or working with, to come work with FIU and come invest and take a look at our tech hub. So that would be my 2 solutions for those.
Can I add on to that? So the reason that it was in the undergrad framework and to connect to peers and to connect to alumni is because within your undergrad, that is when you are gunning it, and that's when you are learning about what you want to do and the people around you. So right now, if you want to figure out what happened to your FIU alumni, you can check LinkedIn and hope that works for you. You can go on Handshake and search to 1,000 and see if something about happens. But other than that, there is no correlative network to connect yourself to other students, and more importantly, connect yourself to alumni who are already out there in the workforce. So if you're applying to a job at the State Department, you have no idea if there's an FIU alumni that works there that you could possibly email, reach out to, and see if that connection will bring something to you. So I know that when India was looking about how to connect to this, schools like Purdue already have a network that allows current students to connect to their alumni, so that that database is already set in stone, and that you feel comfortable reaching out to those ones who are no longer attending FIU but still have Panther nationalism, still have the love to be able to help our students. But that also connects students who might have graduated but are still with us, like yourself who's now in a master's program. You are an alumni, but you're still a student. And so that kind of double feeding kind of spoon will allow you to connect on both wavelengths.
To add to that, we were planning to create a website, possibly like LinkedIn, where alumni can enter all their credentials, all that they've done so far, their experiences, and then you would just type in if you want like a job at USADA. You just type it in, and then you can see like, oh, this person works here, so let me reach out to them, let me see what advice they have for me, so that I can like probably try to think in my undergrad degree what experiences I can have to be similar to experience a position of that capacity.
So my question was about the first proposal for the graduate assistantship program. So that one is a sort of feedback based where FIU helps these students find the assistantships, and then the students make sure that the companies then invest in FIU, right? So my questions has two parts. The first would be, how do you track and sort of quantify the success of a program like that? And the second part would be, as that program evolves, how do you envision it changing? Like, let's say, for example, FIU reaches sort of an investment ceiling where companies can no longer, it can't keep up, or rather increase the amount of companies it's working with. So how would that affect the program and the students looking for opportunities through that?
I hate to say it, but for both answers, it depends. It depends on what organization it is that you're working with. So let's say, for example, right now I'm interning with a nonprofit called Citizens Climate Lobby, right? So what this nonprofit does is that it engages volunteers, it flies them out to DC, it helps them lobby for effective climate policy, right? And so through this nonprofit, right, I'm setting up a meeting currently with my graduate program at FIU to help them collaborate. What that collaboration is going to look like has to be discussed. And so that's one nonprofit. And then you scale it up to different federal agencies like the EPA or the Department of State or the Department of Commerce. And so each one of these have such specialized interests that it's really going to vary between each. And the collaboration has to be kind of met halfway and then discussed. And then the end result is going to be the end result. It's kind of vague, but it's just everything here is so specialized. It's kind of difficult to answer. But hopefully that sheds some light on that. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Anything from our two?
One comment, probably related to my previous question. One of the approaches you suggested was industry mentorship, right? What arguments would you use to incentivize support from industry, particularly, those that are profit-driven entities? What argument would you use to bring them to the table?
Is the fact that you continuously need new people to enter into your field. So if your industry dies, profit dies with it. So it's the same way with universities. They're fostering the next set of academics, but more importantly, they're fostering the next set of workers. So it's a long-term goal, but you see the profit and you see the outcome. So for industry professionals, they keep needing people to enter those applications, and they specifically need new people to enter into that degree, to enter into that workforce, because that's how you make the profit.
That would be that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Now the exit for me.
I was here. It's all my
Just type it.
Very great.
Sit. Yeah, I'll stand on this side.
No, it's okay.
Are you guys ready? Ready? Okay. Can we just start whenever? I guess we wait.
It's pinned?
Yeah, it's pinned. Can we just start?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alright. Well, hey everyone. My name's Ian King. And today I want to tell you about Operation Impact, which is going to be our way of giving students the tools and necessary resources that they need to connect with policymakers and people around DC that have higher influence than we do. Click on the little, yeah. So our objective. We want to create a team of FIU students and ambassadors to promote our university's research and connect with federal agencies. What this means is we pretty much just want to give students that normally couldn't connect with people in this area and in this field the resources and the incentives that they need to be able to widen their scope and promote the research that we do at our university to people so we can get more funding and also just widen the scope of the university as a whole. We also want to raise awareness of FIU's research achievements because I don't know if you guys noticed, but last year FIU had over 82, I think, patents made for inventions that were made by professors and students on campus, so it's really cool. We also want to build networks with governments and industry stakeholders. And yeah, next slide.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Tatiana, and part of this process we wanted to start with team selection and diversity. So the process, we will evaluate candidates based on interest, commitment, and relevant skills. So we want to select students that are interested into the topic. And then for commitment, we want to select students who are committed, who are wanting to represent FIU in a positive light. And then relevant skills, we want to select students who are diverse, in different areas, marketing, business, science. They're able to put together those skills to help this process. Criteria, we want to ensure the team members are motivated to represent FIU and support its research enterprise. Outcome, to form a dedicated core group of FIU ambassadors. So for research focus areas, we want a team that identifies relevant research topics, interests, and goals. We want to select a team. We want the team to create find relative research topics to identify with policymakers. We believe that this would help with outreach and help them, whatever prioritize, it would help the policy makers. The purpose, tailor outreach to align with federal agency priorities and community interests. The goal, develop a strategic approach to advocacy and presentation. And then creating digestible visuals. So in my opinion, I feel like this is very general, that a lot of scientific research and data, it's very complicated for all areas, all different topics of science. So the objective, we want to simplify research data into clear and accessible visuals. So like maps, infographics. For the audience, federal agencies, a lot of federal agencies, some of them are scientific, but not all the time do they have staff members that have a background in science. So we want them to be able to understand the data and the research. K through 12, we believe maps, like I was saying, interactive maps, they're fun and also make it easier for them to understand. Parents and general public, we want to kind of simplify the data and also make sure they understand the impact that it will have on the community, whatever the research is. Deliverables, visual presentations that communicate research impact and in an engaging way.
So in order to build a stronger network, we do prioritize the addition of an alumni engagement system. So essentially we would be using Zoom to meet regularly with alumni, and not only alumni but also previous student ambassadors to give back to the community and keep that sustainability to mentor the new student ambassadors coming in through the next semesters. So what would we be doing through these virtual meetings? We would be sharing our progress, we would be seeking the support and mentorship from those FIU alum, and also hearing from them, hearing the insights that they have with the connections of the federal agencies that they are working with, would be very valuable to hear as student ambassadors as we keep going and planning through our program. And yeah, essentially it would just strengthen the connections and credibility in our outreach efforts. So a huge part of the Operation Impact would obviously be incorporating the DC fly-in events. So most of us have been already testament to this firsthand wonderful event and all the hand conversations that we've had with all of these important individuals and federal agencies. I myself even got like a business card from one of the representatives of Bill Foster's office. So I thought that was amazing that you can only really do that in person. So I feel like having that face-to-face interaction really builds that credibility and helps us be more remembered from the federal agency standpoint. And something else we'd want to incorporate is having like more of a hybrid meetings with professors of FIU and stakeholders as well. So me personally, I'm doing research with FIU. I'm a computer science student and I'm doing data visualization and making interactive dashboards so that environmental researchers can understand the data from the water buoy that you might have seen outside, and in order to solve the problem of the dying fish population in South Florida. So having, for example, some of the experts in my research, environmentalists talking to these federal agencies, having that more expert support would be something that we're proposing. And overall, it would just strengthen the relationships with federal agencies and policymakers. And another thing is that we want to expand our network even more using social media. And we considered LinkedIn as one of our top ideas since students, employees, and even federal agencies use it. And essentially, it would just promote our Operation Impact, and even other students in FIU that wouldn't know about it can know about it that way. Increase our visibility and maybe even let other people know about the FIU and DC fly-in events, not only through emails, and essentially just attract interest from federal agencies and influential connections as well.
So, for Operation Impact, a big thing for us is that it's not just focused on people that are in STEM majors or people that are in fields that have to do with the specific research that we're doing or research in general. We want people from every major. Just like similar to like how everyone that came here, not everyone's in STEM. I'm a marketing major at a climate tech conference, you know? Like those have nothing to do with each other. But coming here, I've been able to say that like now I'm an ambassador for climate tech and I've learned so much, and it's now something that I'm even more passionate about. And that's kind of what we want to do for other students, is we want to give them the tools necessary to become ambassadors for ideas and meet with policymakers like how we've all been able to do. And I think we can all attest like it's been a really cool experience and really powerful and something that we couldn't get anywhere else. And yeah, and we want to develop and create content. And another thing is like people that are out of STEM majors have more experience maybe when it comes to making presentations or communicating with people. And since we're really trying to make the information more digestible and I'll say more interesting for people to watch so that we can actually communicate our ideas better, it'd be more helpful to have a diverse group of people from different majors. And yeah, that's just our goal so we can enhance the messaging, pretty much.
Yes, and the way that we can collaborate with local and federal agencies is that we want to go ahead and invite agencies like Miami-Dade County for lab visits in order to give them more information on the research that FIU is doing. And that purpose is to showcase FIU's research and to foster that collaboration. And then afterwards, that outcome, it's going to build the credibility and that connection with those agencies. Also outreach by writing to our legislators and presenting to them the research that FIU is doing. And then finally, our next steps would be to begin the team selection and that research planning and that social media platform outreach. And reviewing also the key steps in building that ambassador team and recognizing who can go ahead and outreach to the labs, to the research, and to these federal agencies. And lastly, encourage team commitment to Operation Impact's vision.
Thank you.
Any questions? Desiree.
Okay, so I'm so sorry if I missed this. I did go to the bathroom. But fantastic presentation. So obviously, as we all know, I'm sure, you cannot be in two places at once. So when you have advocates, you know, on campus advocating for what is happening here in DC, how would you bridge the almost gap and disconnect between what is actually happening here in DC and then bringing that back to students at FIU's campus?
I would say the idea that you had with the LinkedIn post.
Yeah, essentially that's what we tried to bridge the gap through the LinkedIn post. But we can also create groups on LinkedIn. So there we can have the FIU alumni that are here at DC and get that word out from the student ambassadors to their federal agencies and their connections there to have more of that like kind of like bridged gap. And that was like the main source that we thought about.
Also
using.
having routine meetings via Zoom with previous people, not just alumni of the university, but people that are alumni of the program that have done it in the past, or to be sort of like mentors for the people. So it would kind of keep the communication between people that are here and back there, people that have done it before, people that haven't done it before, people that have done it once, a couple times, and just like kind of foster a whole little community.
Yeah, and then we can also start for those students that came to this seminar. We can also go to our respective departments and as well shed light to what we saw here and how that connects to the research in our departments and the topics that we usually deal with on the day-to-day.
Any other?
I can ask a question. Yep, this sounds really amazing. Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering on what will your process look like in selecting students? Are these going to be students who previously participated in Fly into DC, or who are you going to look at? I know you said all majors, but could you be a little bit more specific? And then how does that, is it a paid position? How does this hiring process?
So for Operation Impact, everyone's welcome. We're equal opportunity. For the general program that itself, to be a part of the community, anyone can join, follow the LinkedIn page, all that stuff. When it comes to the specific events, like the DC fly-in or meeting with actual policymakers, then it'll be similar where there'll be an interview process, an application process, and then we'll select specific people based off specific skills that they have and that sort of thing.
And follow-up question, how do you plan to educate these new ambassadors on all the federal priorities that FAU may have so that they can, in turn, talk to these policymakers, help people visit with labs, etc.?
So I think intuitively you would select the individuals that came to the relevant fly-ins, and then they can go ahead and perhaps select other ambassadors based on that. And since we already have a framework, we can recognize what other individuals are also interested in these topics, and then they would have some general knowledge, or if not, definitely some interest, and they would naturally be hungry to just get more information on that.
I also kind of want to talk about when you said if it was paid or not. We were thinking of something kind of like this. It's the experience. You could use it on your resume, and it's also can help you get jobs. Coming here, we have tried to get internships. It's kind of like a pathway for us. So we're thinking of doing that for like the students, having that be a pathway to internships, or even coming to DC, working for federal agencies and stuff.
Any other questions?
Any thoughts on you mentioned you wanted to build a very diverse team. Any thoughts on whether to target first year students early in their careers or wait until they have a better defined path? Any thoughts on that?
When it comes to the year of the student, I don't think that we specifically care. We'd probably honestly gear it to second or upperclassmen, just because first year students at least speaking for myself as a first year college student, this probably isn't like the top of what I was thinking about. There are definitely some students that would be interested in it, and of course it'd be open to them. But with second and third year students that are looking, like we said, for internships and stuff like that, and something to put on their resume, this would probably be geared a little more towards them. But anyone would be.
I see. Thank you very much. And I love, you can only exchange business cards when you meet in person.
Yes, exactly.
I'm gonna use that a lot.
Any more?
Great. Any feedback from any of our three judges or experts or on all? You can come sit down. On any of the groups? Any feedback in general for the good of the order? Yes. If you want to stand and.
I mean.
Sure. Just go.
I guess I could, yeah. So if I could put on like my big baby hat for a second, it was too much text. I think all of you are such excellent and eloquent speakers that it does nothing for your presentations to put so much of what you're already talking about on the screen, and it sort of distracts us from what you are actually saying, because in my head I'm trying to decide if I should listen to you, or rather focus on listening to you, or read what's on the screen first because it might be pertinent information to what you're saying. Some of you, I think that the second group specifically did it really well. I think that the way that they split up the text that was on the screen still didn't distract too much from what they were talking about. So I think they did it best, but even then it was, there were some parts where it was just far too much. I think because again, you all understand the topic so well and you speak about it at such depth, I think you would be better suited in the presentation to just include key points phrases ideally, words if you can, and then images obviously, and let yourself do the speaking, not the PowerPoint. But yeah, that's all from mine.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you. Love it. Thank you again for bringing me here. It's a pleasure. One aspect that I will offer as constructive feedback, with I think one exception, I didn't hear any single name, right? So make it personal. And by providing your name, even your first name, or perhaps there was no time to do an introduction.